This is the only way to get your college football week started on the good foot. It is the kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. TNT holding you down once again here for Champ Week, and we got to get right to it because the news over the weekend was it was
there news?
Fast moving yet slow breaking. It was weird, right? Lane Kiffin is the term that I'm looking for in all of this. And of course, he was introduced as LSU's new head coach recently. We might as well just take a listen into what his introductory press conference sounded like.
Obviously, last 48 hours in a lot of ways sucked. It's the only way I can describe it. It sucked for a lot of people. And there was no way to possibly do it, in my opinion, any better than we did from a timing standpoint, because it's a bad scheduling system of how it's set up. And eventually, hopefully, it gets like the NFL where you can't do that in the season and don't have to make those decisions. I'm never going to make a decision on money. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know what my contract is here. That's not very financially responsible, okay? I'm sure it's really good, okay? I don't know what it is, nor did I know at the other places what the numbers were. Because I said in the beginning, I told Jimmy Sexton, don't tell me the numbers, okay? I want to make a decision that has nothing to do with money for me. Now, tell me the numbers in the plan for what the money is for the players, because that's everything in that area to me. I felt like everybody that I talked to outside of the state that I was in all basically said the same thing, okay? They all said, man, you are going to regret it if you don't take the shot and you don't go to LSU. It's the best job in America, it's the best resources, and to win it.
Tay, the floor is yours, not just to that press conference, but just the weekend experience.
Okay, so you know the TikTok sound that was viral that was like, is it me? Am I the drama? Yes, Lane Kiffin, you are the drama. Congratulations. Where's the Oscar? He deserves it. No, listen, my whole takeaway from this is I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he took this job, because I've heard from many coaches around the country, and you'll hear it from a lot of people, it is arguably the best job in the country.
Yes.
I'm not surprised that he's not coaching Ole Miss in the playoff, because Ole Miss made that decision. That doesn't surprise me at all. I get on board it. And I'm not surprised LSU wanted this man as their head coach, because not only is he polarizing, but this man knows how to win. You know, I can't say I necessarily fault him for leaving, because I understand personal goals and personal decisions are just that. They are personal. We are all chasing aspirations and dreams. I can't necessarily understand maybe the timing of it, why you didn't push a little harder to say, LSU, hold on. Let me stay at Ole Miss. I want to complete what I committed to. I also think, you know, in this day and age in college football, while yes, LSU is the standard and they are everything historically, they won championships, he was building that at Ole Miss.
Sure.
And you can kind of make that wherever you're at now in this day and age, i.e. Indiana. That's not a historically great program.
No,
they've turned into a contender. So
no question.
That's my stance. I'm not surprised at any of it. You are dramatic, Lane Kiffin, but if nothing else, he's consistent.
No question, right? Like, this is just so on brand for him. You talk about leaving the Oakland Raiders in absolute disgrace. Al Davis firing him up, tuning him up on the way out, him being fired on the tarmac at USC, Tennessee leaving over the course of a night. We're talking leaving Alabama because Nick Saban said you can't even lock in for this championship run that we're trying to make right now. This is nothing short of phenomenal on-brand work from one Lane Kiffin. And I think I heard it summed up best when folks said he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. And you can't do that in conference specifically. No. This is a route unlike any other has taken, going from one divisional rival back in the day to the other. So like all that to say, look, man, Lane, I understand you wanted to kind of take your time with this, but you aren't afforded that in this industry.
Yeah.
So please, you could have given us a little bit less as far as the drama goes.
And I heard Cole Kubelik and Greg McElroy talking about it earlier today, and I agreed, like, he did have all the leverage at all of these places. I wish he would have used it, like I said, a little bit more and pushed back at LSU and said, look, I'm going to respect what I'm doing here. Sure. They're still going to hire him either way. He was their top candidate, really probably one of their only candidates. They were going to do anything to get them some Lane Kiffin. But to your point, and with Ole Miss and not being able to coach, like, sort of like a breakup. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Like any therapist, a good therapist at least, would tell you, like, if you keep texting once in a while and you keep, breadcrumbing, and also I'll just see them one time this week, you're only making the inevitable harder. Rip the Band-Aid off. The block button is the best thing that's ever been invented, and that's kind of what Ole Miss just did. They hit the block button on Lane Kiffin, And they're moving on because that's really the healthiest way to do it.
Are we still talking about coaching decisions? I just want to
Yeah.
make sure. Okay. Anyways, the social media streets was hot with an unfolding of news like this one. It was so funny to see. God bless Marty Smith for hanging out there. He was exactly like that woman when the Popeye chicken sandwiches got dropped because of how long he spent out there. The quote that he had, "Please, Lord Jesus, let the answer be yes," when he asked Lane, "Is this about to be over?" It's fantastic, the content that came out of that.
It's been 84 years.
That's right. Shout out Mike Gola Jr. for the Spider-Man reference, but also the clothes being put outside.
This is crazy work.
Is so college football.
Is that not a breakup to you?
It's
That's
perfect.
a breakup.
It's literally to the left, to the left.
And you know what?
Shout out Beyonce.
The captain of Team Petty is Lane Kiffin.
Yes.
And he's being pettied.
That's right.
By his own old university.
The heart gets what it deserves, and that's exactly what Lane Kiffin finds himself in a situation regarding, man. It's perfect.
It's gonna be crazy. Alrighty, guys. The penultimate CFP rankings will be released later tonight. Our friend Heather Dinich has already thought about it. Obviously, she eats, sleeps, breathes the CFP right now. Here's her prediction after the final week of the regular season. Trev, anything stand out to you about this?
Those two Big 12 teams are always going to intrigue me. What shakes out in that Big 12 championship and that rematch between Texas Tech and BYU could really alter some stuff and the seeding and all the fun stuff that happens after that.
Yeah, and last week wasn't so crazy. 11 of the top 12 teams won, so relatively similar. So if we have questions, we got to bring in our friend Heather Dinich, who is with us today. And she's going to be a very busy week for Heather. She's going to be heading to Grapevine, and she'll be with the committee as they sort of sort all this out coming up. So you look at your rankings. Let's focus on Texas A&M to start, because they were 3 going into the weekend. They lose to Texas. You dropped them to 6. Why, after that one loss, their first on the season, do you put them there, which would mean they don't get a bye?
Because not only do they only have one loss, they only have one win against the CFP top 25 team. And it was by 1 point at Notre Dame. They had been clinging to that win against Notre Dame all season long. Don't get me wrong, they're a good football team, right? But this opened the door to inspect their resume a little bit more. And I think when you look at the losses, too, which the committee compares losses, 100%. Remember, Texas dropped all the way to 17 after they got smashed 35-10 by Georgia. So that all plays a piece of the puzzle. But I will tell you, the committee does like 4 road wins from them. But they also like the way Oregon has been playing lately.
It's so much of that eye test taking over of, hey, were you getting away with it for a while here, and are we finally going to penalize you for not necessarily having, to use a term that's often thrown out, game control that they had hoped you have at the ranking that you are. But sticking in the SEC, that Bama-Georgia conundrum, as we see them match up in the SEC Championship. Should Bama take a loss, which I am absolutely rooting for, what could take place in the rankings, specifically regarding the Tide?
That opens up the door for them to be left out of the college football playoff as the SEC runner-up, which Commissioner Greg Sankey would not like at all, because the one thing that those commissioners don't want is for the selection committee to penalize teams that play in the conference championship game but don't win. But here's the thing. It's not just a loss to Georgia that would do this. Right. They did lose to Florida State in the season opener, and they're already in a precarious position. We're not talking about number 4 Alabama here. We're talking about number 10 Alabama. But the tricky part about this, which makes it more difficult, is you see this. They went on the road and they already did the thing.
100%.
Right.
100%.
They beat Georgia already on their home turf. It doesn't get any more difficult than that, right? So that's a tough thing for the committee to weigh.
Yeah,
that's really hard.
And there's precedent too, and obviously it plays for every single league. How does the conference championship game affect these teams? And that brings us to the Atlantic Coast Conference. Let's talk about the ACC for a second, because it's been absolutely chaotic the entire year. You have a Virginia team who punched its ticket, and then you have, because of crazy tiebreakers, a 7-5 Duke team in the championship game to play the Hoos. You do have Virginia winning that championship game, and that they would slot in as the ACC champion into the CFP. What if, though, Heather, what if 7-5 Duke wins that title game? Now what? Now what? What do we do?
Listen, it's not only the worst nightmare for the ACC, it's the worst nightmare for the selection committee.
100%.
To be put in this position to have to choose between leaving a Power 4 conference out entirely arbitrarily and choosing maybe JMU, right? But I'm going to remind people, JMU could lose to Troy, okay?
Right.
The game is not done yet. There's a game that has to be played. But I will also not rule out the possibility that 5-loss Duke can get into the college football playoff as the ACC champion.
Ah.
Why?
Why? Tell us more.
Why? Because I'm so glad you asked that question. Because the selection committee, I'm going to use the word abhors JMU's strength of schedule, which is one of the worst in the country, which is why you haven't seen them yet.
100%.
If you see them on Tuesday night, tonight, I don't even know what day it is, then that indicates there's some possibility, right? But here's the thing. Duke would have a top 20 win against Virginia.
True.
They would have 7 wins against Power 4 opponents. JMU would have
Not a
0.
one. Not a one.
So I'm saying there's a chance.
Yeah, and you would have to tell me with a straight face that JMU's record would have to be better than Duke's at that point. That would be very hard to do. I've been saying all week, to have this doomsday conversation with the ACC, you kind of have to stop it at some point because you don't even have to have it. If Miami is just in as an at-large bid, doesn't matter what happens in the championship game, at least the ACC would be in. Where do you stand, though, on Miami right now? I would like to see them in the playoff, but I know that may not be the case.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the committee is thinking about this. And this is what's hard for Miami fans to understand, and I get that. We have to remember that Miami and Notre Dame are not like this right now.
Yeah. Couple teams between them.
Bingo. Alabama and BYU. So is Miami better than Alabama and BYU? And is it better than Notre Dame? Right? There's more than one question to be answered here. Miami has done everything it possibly can.
Yeah.
It went on the road, it beat Pitt, it's shown the consistency.
Yep.
It has the scoring margin that you need. It's
Yep.
looked pretty. All the things have gone right. But is it enough for the people in that room to say we think they are a better football team than Alabama, BYU, and Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's the
It's tough, man.
that buffer that is
The
currently.
buffer. It's a great word for it.
It feels as though
Yeah.
we're going to do a lot of parsing between Notre Dame and Miami, but the true dichotomy, or I guess trichotomy in that case, would be Miami, BYU, and Alabama, as opposed to anything that has to do with Notre Dame before we get to the head-to-head stuff.
The bigger conversation in the room has been between Notre Dame and Alabama.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been between those
I could
two
see that,
teams.
though. I could see
Alabama has a great strength of schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat Georgia.
Yes. On the
Again.
road, between the hedges.
Right. So that's where the debate has been.
Yeah.
in
So,
that room.
so let's go back to BYU, though, because they have this Big 12 championship against Texas Tech. Winning in, there's no doubt about that.
Right.
Yes.
Should they lose? They are already on the fringe, according to where you have them slated on the projection.
Right.
What does that do for their hopes and the Big 12's hopes of getting multiple teams in this?
Well, I think it ends the Big 12's hopes of getting multiple teams unless something crazy happens. Let's just assume Ohio State and Indiana are not only both in, they're both in with byes.
That's
like they're in
right.
the top, regardless of
Feel
what happens
safe.
there,
Feel
right?
safe.
So the question would be, what happens with the ACC? What happens with Alabama? Does that make some room? BYU's tough because the reason it dropped so far was because it got crushed by Texas.
Housed.
Yes. Yes. After that game, there was a significant gap evident between the Big 12's best team and BYU. Do they close the gap? We remember how the games play out with the whole committee watching. We talked about this earlier.
Yep.
Influences that decision.
Yeah, and of course, BYU right now, their head coach potentially in talks of going to Penn State. How does that impact them this weekend? I don't know. There's a ton at play nationally. You did just mention the Big Ten and Indiana and Ohio State, 1 and 2 in the country. And we were talking about it in the green room over there. You're like, which way should I go in this matchup? What are you eyeing in this game?
Well, I'm eyeing both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because both are in the Heisman conversation. The difference is Fernando Mendoza. Go ahead, what?
No. I want you to deliver it. No.
Tested.
No.
He's been
exactly.
tested. Everybody knows this, right? You don't need a degree in college football to know this. And the Penn State drive, I mean, I was going to say ultimate, but I have the word penultimate in my mind. And it might be the penultimate drive because he's got another Heisman moment chance,
He
right?
does.
So we'll see what happens. But these two quarterbacks, and then you throw Jeremiah Smith in it, like there's just so much talent all over this field. It's so easy to pick Ohio State, but Indiana's a good football team.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
So we'll see what
I'm
happens.
playing for something. They're playing for
you.
something.
It's whether it be just the first round bye or just #1 overall seed, that Big Ten championship. Don't let nobody tell you that conference championships don't matter, baby, even on the largest of scales. Heather, Dinich, we appreciate you as always for kicking it with us here.
Safe
So
travels.
once everything, I love the royalty drop because it's so worthy when Heather Dinich at the way up. Look, make sure y'all stick around for after the rankings get dropped this evening for a little rankings reaction. After everything's announced, join Sam Ravitch, Scooby Mageza, Matt Sims, breaking everything down, providing their take on the second to last edition, penultimate edition, if you will, of the CFP rankings. Taylor, don't miss it.
I won't. You know what time it is. Time now for Unstoppable Performances presented by Ram Trucks. Let's dive a little deeper into the SEC Championship between number 4 Georgia, number 10 Alabama, a rematch from earlier this season when Bama went to Athens and handed the Bulldogs their only loss of the season, 24-21. We all remember. Tide quarterback Ty Simpson accounted for 3 touchdowns, and they never trailed in this game. My resident dog here, but let's talk about this unbiasedly. I'm sure there's a little bias in there somewhere.
Now.
What lessons do you feel like Georgia learned in that loss to Alabama that must be applied this weekend?
First of all, I own my biases. Y'all know what it is, right? I'm not going to sit here and try to hide it, but I digress because there are some lessons learned and there are some things that have improved between this matchup that we saw in Athens a while ago into now what this Georgia Dogs team has formed into. They've gotten much better on third down, which was the bane of my existence, frankly, in the first half of the season. They were able to find a little bit of a passing game with Gunnar Stockton, Mike Bobo, unlock that offense for Gunnar, and that was understandable to sort of slow roll him out into the world of college football, this being his first full season as a starter at the helm. But I will say, last week gave me some concern regarding Georgia Tech not able to finish drives with touchdowns, settling for field goals so often. I understand that Georgia Tech was going to give them fits just because it's a rivalry game, but there are some things that need to be tightened up ahead of this matchup, specifically regarding that third down conversion rate, getting off the field in the first half, and then again, making sure that you have a passing attack that can keep pace with Ty Simpson and them if you're not going to be able to get pressure on them. I will say too, right?
Yeah.
Schematically, they were able to figure out pressures for Haynes King, got him off of his spot, and were able to disrupt a lot of their timing, specifically in the run game for Haynes. But if they are not able to create that same sort of dysfunction in the Bama offense from a pressure standpoint and just a disruption, that's where things get loose again, and you're not going to be able to play catch up once again.
No, I like that. And on that point of applying pressure, I look at last week's Iron Bowl with Alabama and Auburn. Auburn did apply the pressure, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. Ty Simpson, lowest completion percentage as a starter this season.
That's what
There you go.
Guess what we talked about too, going into rivalry weekend, right? Things could get weird in Jordan Hare if they got after the quarterback, and that's exactly what the Auburn Tigers do, if nothing else.
Yeah, but I'm with you too defensively. Like, you got to get off the field on third down if you're Georgia, and you have to play 4 quarters of defense. Like, not just 2, not just in the second half, but like, let's play the entire game.
Clean it up.
Shall we? Yeah, let's clean it up. Also, RTDB, run the damn ball if you're Georgia.
Always.
That's a positive lesson learned. They did that really well in the loss earlier this season.
So good.
You got to continue doing that. Okay, as a former player, do you think in the locker room for the Dogs that they are discussing not just the last loss to Alabama, but what it has been under Kirby Smart? They're 1-7 against the Tide.
Oh, there's no doubt an intangible element to this that makes you want to make sure you tighten up against this Tide team specifically. But I just think it is so much more than just some sort of amorphous motivational factor that's going to play into this one. The first question you asked, the lessons that you learned are going to play so much more of a paramount role in this matchup than anything. Have you improved as a roster? Have you tightened up the things that were not so great early on in the season more than anything? Yes, sure. Kirby's the best at getting folks ready to run through a wall for him, but I'm not going to sit here and act like being able to get up for a game like this is going to determine the factor against the roster in Alabama that is as talented as they are. Like, that little motivation ain't going to do but so much. You have to be tight in your execution, right? And even as a former player, you got up, but you knew at the end of the day, between them white lines, I better be on it up here more than anything.
I don't think you even need to think about it. If you go to Georgia, you want to play Alabama and you want to beat Alabama. That's instinctual at this point. It's in your blood if you're the Georgia Bulldogs. Okay, moving on for the scenario of this one in terms of the college football playoff. If Georgia wins, no doubt, they're all the way in. They're going to lock up one of those top 4 spots. They'll stay right where they are, maybe even move up a little. We'll see what happens around the rest of the country. As for Alabama, though, if they do lose to the Dogs, there's potential and we've talked about it, that they could get left out of the CFP.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this whole matter?
Okay, you're looking at a 3-loss Bama?
Yes,
right?
it would be a 3-loss Bama.
So rather than the Tide fans taking the loss in the SEC championship to heart as the thing that got you up out of the paint,
Preach.
let's look at the entirety of the resume,
Okay.
as we ask every other fan base to do, right? Make sure that you take into account that you lost to Oklahoma at crib. You lost to Florida State on the road in week 1. I'm not saying that that is the end-all, be-all factor, and no, we are not determining you we are not judging you at your worst moment,
right.
but this is a holistic resume that we are looking at if we are a committee, and for that reason, I would slide you right on down up out of that top, not just 10, but top 12, it feels like, so that you're not even looking at an at-large bid at that point. It's again, you have to take things in totality.
Yes.
And again, I'm putting my bias aside on this one because I would say the same thing about any logo that had this exact scenario placed upon their shoulders. Because I do like how the Tide team is equipped. They have athletes all over the field. But when you look at the resume, 3 losses in its entirety is the thing that does you in, not just a loss in the SEC.
And that's what the committee is supposed to do, total body of work. And that's almost a very similar argument to Texas. People are like, well, why should they have incentive to go play and lose to Ohio State early? That's not the loss people are worried about. It's the loss to Florida.
That's right.
Alabama's loss to Florida State is the worst of any of those top 12 teams right now that could potentially be in the college football playoff. But for the Tide, if you win and you beat Georgia this weekend again,
ain't no question.
Doesn't matter.
Don't do it.
Ain't no question. All right, it's time to make a game pick. Gonna put you on the spot, Trev.
Dogs get some get back. I'm going to keep it simple, right? They run the ball, they find a way to get stops on 3rd down early, and they find a way to just make sure that the motivation, to your point earlier, does get them over the hump. So give me the Dogs to win it in ATL.
I'm going to double down on the Dogs, baby. You know, I think at some point the Tide, no pun intended, has to change. And we keep talking about chaos. Why not throw more in there and see some more fan bases complain on Sunday?
Who's that coming down the track? Mean Machine in red and black. Turn me up, baby. Come on now, Dogs. Go ahead and get you an SEC championship.
Gonna be so much fun to watch this weekend. So many conference championships that will have major implications. And today is Tuesday, but it's not just any Tuesday. It is Giving Tuesday, a global day of giving, and it's also the start of ESPN's V Week when we continue the great Jim Valvano's fight against cancer. You can make a difference today by supporting cancer research, which is needed now more than ever. And if you're able to, give at v.org/donate. 100% all of your donation goes to cancer research. And this year, for the first time ever, the V Foundation, through the support of Principal and the Principal Foundation, are launching a $1 million match challenge to inspire greater giving in the fight against cancer. Every donation made during V Week will be matched dollar for dollar up to $1 million. So if you can, open up those pockets.
Penultimate college football rankings mean we got to bring in Mad Max here to the kickoff presented by Ram Trust. It's Champ Week, baby. Max Browne with us here. Let's start with the Big Ten Championship, the one that is between the only 2 undefeated teams remaining in all of college football. What do you have playing out between these 2 teams as far as the most important factor, deciding factor, if you will, in this too?
It's got to be this Heisman matchup, right? Which quarterback can play better than the next guy? Fernando Mendoza versus Julian Sand. Should be a fun one. I mean, yeah, 2 best teams in the country. For Fernando Mendoza, in my estimation, it's his award to lose. If he goes in there and just plays well, even if Indiana were to lose, I still think he should walk away with the Heisman Trophy. But obviously, Julian Sand's been super efficient. But yeah, to me, Heisman Trophy is not an award you can ease into. In the first month of the season, Julian Sand was eased into this whole season. We were talking about the offense protecting him. He's got 2 first-round receivers out there. Fernando Mendoza's got the story, the Heisman moments with a win on the road in Eugene and the Penn State comeback. This is Mendoza's award to lose.
I had Julian Sand as a by default winner of the Heisman, but you sold me on the concept
that was pretty good, Max.
of the moments being the thing that puts Mendoza over the top. But regarding the game itself, who needs this win more between Ohio State and Indiana?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this. And the question to me is, you know, who, if they were to lose, is most likely to jump outside the top 4 and lose a first-round bye? Like, that is the question. I don't think it's likely for either team, but I do think Indiana needs it slightly more because Ohio State, they won the national title a year ago not being a top 4 seed. So they're used to this setting. And I also think on the margins, I think Ohio State gets a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, being Ohio State, being the defending national titles with any sort, or in the national champions, excuse me, with any sort of tiebreaker type of scenario where Indiana needs to ensure they get that first round bye and then they host that, or they're the home team in that second round.
Right.
So, you know, things are on their terms. So I go Indiana.
And if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And Ohio State is the reigning national champions right now. Let's go over to the Big 12, where you have Texas Tech and you have BYU. It is a rematch. Last time we saw this game, Texas Tech absolutely steamrolled the Cougars. But what do you think the Cougs learned from that game that they can apply this second time around, Max?
That there's no shot they can win this game if they don't win the rushing battle. Fact.
Fair.
Fact. Trev thought I was going to say there's no shot that they can win this game, but I had a little zinger at
Good
the
caveat.
end.
Good caveat.
I know Trevor Scales likes himself some rushing attack, and that's what BYU needs. I mean, L.J. Martin led the conference in rushing, only had 35 yards against Texas Tech. That is not a recipe for success. They had double-digit design carries for Bear Bachmar. Like, they have to win the rushing attack. On the other side, Cameron Dickey, Texas Tech's running back, he ran all over the Cougars. If BYU is going to win this game, they have to win the rushing matchup. And then when Bear Bachmar is asked to throw the rock, he's no longer a true freshman anymore. Right. He has to make a couple timely throws in this game to keep him on the field, and that's got to be BYU's recipe for success.
Yeah, Bears graduated at this point in the season. He's moved up a level. All right, we were just talking about that like revenge factor when you're matching up with a team for the second time in the season. Alabama, Georgia certainly has that factor. As a former player and someone who's been in this position before, do you think BYU is talking about that in the locker room heading into that this weekend?
BYU has so much bulletin board material. Everybody's disrespecting the Cougs because every single Notre Dame fan and Miami fan and Oklahoma, Vandy, they're saying, hey, we should be in the playoff. Well, what they're saying on the other side is that BYU should not be in the playoff, even though they're an 11-1 team, and you open up the whole conversation about, you know, they only have something to lose potentially by playing in this game. Regardless, I think BYU's getting disrespected in this whole equation, and they have an opportunity to right the ship there. And oh, by the way, at the time we're filming this, their head coach is in Penn State coaching rumors, so that's going to be a potential distraction. And how does that play out over the next 72 hours? That's a big question. But BYU, they're known for having mature guys on their roster. I think they'll be fine.
Mature's one way to put it.
They
old.
It's okay. Mature guys. They're a little bit older on this roster, but we were just talking about that too. There's been so much going on not on the football field throughout all of college football. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. If you think BYU has a ton of bulletin board material, are you leaning Cougs? Are you going Texas Tech 2 times?
I'm here for the chaos. I think the Cougs keep it close. Okay. I think Texas Tech gets it done, and then add another team to the whole madness of we deserve to be in, so-and-so deserves to be out. I think the committee, there's no way the committee is going to be able to be right. That's a fact. They're going to frustrate at least one, maybe two, three fan bases in this whole equation. And I think BYU puts their feet to the fire and at least has an argument for why they should be in there.
I'm so glad you brought up the word chaos. Enter the ACC, right? That championship game is between UVA, who lost an ACC game that wasn't an ACC game, and a 5-loss team in Duke. Have we figured out that these are not the two best teams in this conference, Max?
We have figured that out. Miami is one of the two best teams in this conference. I'm not saying Virginia and Duke don't deserve to be in here. They earn the right to be in there. But ask any coach in the ACC, who would you not want to play right now? They're all saying Miami. Mm-hmm. That being said, Miami's not in there. Virginia earned their way. The thing that sticks out to me, though, is Virginia got the absolute luck of the draw in terms of scheduling. They did not play, when you look at the ACC standings, they did not play the number 3 team, 4 team, 5 team, 6 team, or 8th team in the conference. And the two games that they did lose were against the 9th and the 11th ranked team in the conference. So they got very fortunate in that regard. And then everyone knows Duke's story as well. But here they end, their win. If they win, they're in the CFP, and Tony Elliott deserves to be in every Coach of the Year conversation as a result.
Yep, absolutely. All right, welcome to the world of bloated conferences. That's what happens. You don't play anybody, and you could take advantage of an easier schedule, kind of like they did this year. All right, so this is a game that was played just a couple of weeks ago, and UVA dominated Duke. So we're going to see it once again. We'll see if it changes. But in your opinion, what do the Hoos have to do against the Blue Devils to repeat?
They got to lean on their big-time transfer portal addition, Chandler Morris. I mean, ever since Morris got there, it's totally changed the entire trajectory of that program. They've given him the keys to the car, and he's got to get it done, not only through the air, but on the ground as well. His legs are very much a factor, and ACC folks know, but I don't think necessarily the national folks know how big of a difference Morris has made for not only this offense, but this entire team, and he's got to come up big for them once again.
Look, we saw when they lost their top receiver just last season, and there were concerns about what that UVA offense could do. They've figured it out courtesy of that man in the middle, Chandler Morris. We appreciate you as always, Max. We'll holla at you soon again.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks for having me on.
I just think that, as Max said, there's no right answer to these 12 teams that we're getting ready to have as we get to the last rankings coming up here in a couple weeks. But beyond everything, I'm just glad I ain't got a conference affiliation like you, because, buddy.
Go ACC, everybody.
I couldn't do it.
I'm just excited to crown champions this weekend, and prayers up to the committee who will be locked away there in Grapevine, Texas, trying to figure all this out. We don't have to do that. We just get to talk about it. That's a wrap. Enjoy Champ Weekend for everybody's king over here, Treavor Scales. I'm Taylor Tannebaum. Thanks for watching the Kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. We will see you next time.